All right, welcome everybody. We are, sorry. So this meeting is being held pursuant to and in compliance with Ordinance number 20A in accordance to ensure the continuity of government during the COVID-19 disaster. The opportunities for the public to access and participate in the electronic meeting are posted on the Albemarle County website and on the Albemarle County calendar when available. All right, and I would like to take a minute to recognize and welcome our attendees. So we have Abigail Wilson, and maybe we could just allow Abigail to just join as a panelist. Terrific. And Nicola McGaw. I think somebody's got we're getting a lot of background noise. I'm not sure where it's coming from. Oh, Peggy. Rod Walker and Sean Tubbs. Thank you so much, you guys, for attending, and we're really happy that you're here to join the meeting. And I think that we've got all of our members now that are in attendance here. And the members who are present are Michael, Bruce, Peggy, Lonnie, Kate, and myself. And I just want to just recognize right now that Nancy has offered her resignation, but I want to thank her, even though she isn't here right now, for her leadership and the time that she served with the Natural Heritage Committee. And she is a past chair, and so really valued her work and her leadership. So it'll be a shame not to have her as part of our committee, but to thank her for the work that she has done. And I don't know if Kenan has joined us. I don't think and Kenan, hello. Kenan, you're still in the process of, did you apply? We applied to join? He is, okay, so he is.
I'm trying to get him moved over.
Okay, terrific. But at any rate, I do, in addition to that, want to, once we get Kenan over here, I believe that he does have an intention to apply. And we can hear from him directly.
Unmute. Okay. Hi, can you hear me? I've unmuted.
Great, we can hear you.
Okay, all right, great. I'm trying, it's different as an attendee than normal attendance. Yeah, okay. I am here and attending as attendee. And yeah, I will be checking in with the clerk.
Ken, I've sent you a request to become a panelist. If you'll just check yes on that, that'll move you over.
Okay.
There we go.
All right, fantastic. So great. I'm glad. So Kenan, you're going to get all that figured out, and we will welcome you back as a committee member. And then I also want to introduce Abigail Wilson, who is hopefully going to join as a new member. She lives in Crozet, and she has a background in outdoor education, has definitely interest in the environment. She told me that her dad was a botanist, and she has a lot of experience with IT, which is a definite big plus. And so Abigail, really glad to have you. She joined our education work group earlier today, so we got a chance to chat more. So she's going to have to leave the meeting early, but we wanted to invite her so she could meet everyone and get a taste of what the full meeting looks like here.
If she's gonna have to leave early, I should probably do my update on the Piedmont Native Plants database earlier so that she can hear that, particularly if she's interested in native plants and IT.
I think that would be a good idea. Let's see. Why don't we let's go ahead and review our agenda and approve it and approve the minutes, and then we'll move on to that. How's that sound? All right. So did everybody get a chance to look at the, well, we didn't meet in January, so the December minutes. And we will accept a motion to approve the December minutes.
I move to approve the minutes. Peggy.
Thank you, Peggy.
I second.
I
Mike.
second.
Okay, and Bruce is going to second. So let's just go ahead and do a quick vote on that. Michael, do you approve those minutes?
I do. Yes.
Bruce,
I approve.
is Leah here? No, not yet. Peggy,
Yes, approve.
great. Lonnie,
Abstain?
abstain, okay, and Kate.
Yes.
Okay, fantastic. So the minutes are approved, and then we have the agenda.
Okay. We have to approve that?
Yep. So is there a
Okay.
motion to approve that?
Yeah, so I would make a motion to, where would you like me to put the update on native plants database? That'd be
Why don't
cool.
we put that in the follow-ups? We'll put it right before important sites. We'll put it
Okay.
right at the top there. How's that sound?
Sounds good.
Okay,
With that addition, I move to approve the agenda.
fantastic. And a second?
Second. Mike.
Thank you, Mike. Bruce, do you approve?
I approve, Peggy.
Okay, great. How about you, Bruce? All right. How about Kate?
Yes.
All right, great. So we've got Lonnie, Peggy.
So you're supposed to ask me again, but
Okay,
yes.
okay, Lonnie. Lonnie, do you approve?
Aye.
Michael, do you approve?
Aye.
Hey, thank you for holding us to the fire there, Lonnie. And Bruce, do you approve?
I approve.
Fantastic. All right. We have the minutes and the agenda approved. And let's go ahead and hear from Lonnie about the native plant database. The new format looks fantastic.
Yeah, so I've been working with Rep. Glatley in the County of Albemarle and Code for Seville. And we've been working on version 2.0 of the native plant database. For those who haven't seen it, feel free to go to the Albemarle County website and pull that up, or Christine, if you want to pull that up pretty quickly. We're putting together a bunch of new features, one of which is, if you have seen the Piedmont Native Plants Guide, you'll be able to print out something that looks very much like the Piedmont Native Plants Guide from the new database based upon a search. So you'll be able to sort of print out your own custom guide. And there's a bunch of new features we're working on right now. We're working on the data structure for the database, which, it's sort of like laying the foundation before you build the house. And so that's been a lot of work, and then figure out what technology that we're going to be using to write everything in. So laying the stage for all that stuff is very important. And we've seen several draft designs of what that database is going to look like. We do need some volunteers though. So if anyone, wink, wink, nod, nod, has IT skills and would like to join our project through Code for Charlottesville, this is a great way to combine IT skills and love of native plants. So certainly welcome anyone who would like to. It's better to do like smaller, like if you just do button, that'd probably be an easier way to look for it.
Oops, sorry. Okay. There we go.
There you go.
I like the format.
I mean, this is still version 1.0 that you're looking at. I guess I should have brought you some of the draft things that we saw for version 2.0, but we're looking at some of the different. North Carolina has a very interesting database that their extension offers, and we're also looking at some of the ones from the National Wildlife Federation, and so we're looking at a bunch of different designs of ones that people have already put together. And for those tech savvy people, the back of this end of this will also be a web service, so that if there's any developers that want to build their own interface, there's be a way to connect electronically to the data, so that anyone will be able to use the underlying source data to build their own projects or web mobile apps or anything they like. It'll all be open source, so we'll share the code. Once it's done, the code will be publicly available for anyone to use. And we hope that this will be a model for plant databases across the country, really, because currently every native plant database that's out there is all sort of siloed in its own little box, and its own little data like hidden in its little black box, so you can't access it. But this will do is sort of liberate the data and make sure that any data that we use is sort of like publicly available and shareable in a standard format that can be used anywhere, anywhere in Virginia or even anywhere in the United States. So it'll be very, very scalable.
Thanks, Lonnie. And
Very impressive.
Thanks.
Hey, Lonnie, the International Master Gardener Conference is coming up in Kansas City, not this year, but next year. And they have a call out now for papers and information. And this would be, I think, very interesting, and you could get it out to an international audience if you're interested.
Oh, that's a great idea.
I'll just throw that out there.
Yeah, that's a great idea. I mean, hopefully, well, if you could drop me an email with the
I'll forward you the email I got with the call for those.
Yeah, I mean, this progress, since we don't have a whole lot of volunteers, it's been moving really, really slowly. So if you do know people with IT skills, then please forward them onto our project, because we could certainly use all the help we can get. A lot of the people volunteering are like UVA students and data sciences. But yeah, I hopefully we'll make enough progress by then to be able to show something. It's kind of a race. I think Alan Weekly, for who many of you may know from the floor of the Southeast, sounds like he may be trying to do something very, very similar to what we're doing. So it's kind of a race to see who can do it first. So we'll see.
Lonnie, I'd definitely be interested in helping out. I've never worked with Code for Charlottesville before. Should I work with you through them, or how do you want that to work out?
Yeah, you'd work with, drop me an email and I'll copy the requisite people, and then and say we have a new prospective volunteer.
all right,
Great.
fantastic. Abigail, it didn't take long, did it? To find a project.
And so it looks like the technology that they're going to be using is Python, if you're familiar with Python. But I mean, a lot of this stuff is going to be, but anyway, I can update you on all the technology that's being used. It's pretty standard stuff.
Right, Bruce, you have a question.
I can only, excuse me, I can only begin to appreciate the all the work that's gone into this so far. But I wonder if, I hate to do this, I wonder if we can, if I could volunteer Emma here, because some of the, one of my first reactions is everything seems equally important. And I wonder about graphic design here with the database. And I know that databases and graphic design don't usually go together, but they're not mutually exclusive. And I would love to see some sort of graphical design so that plant uses, plant needs, and the scientific common name aren't given visually the same weight as appears in the database. So that
Yes.
someone, so you understand what I'm talking about?
Oh, I understand completely what you're talking about. So there's two teams with Code for Charlottesville. One is designing the interface and one is designing the code, right? So yeah, there's definitely space for people who are interested in the graphic design piece of that. They have a separate team for that Code for Civil who are working on the graphical interface.
All right. Well, we look
Um,
forward to seeing the next iteration, and thank you for that invitation.
I have one other question for Lonnie. Are there any fruits or vegetables that you would include in this? I know that would be hard to say that that's native unless you know that something is, and is that something that would be added?
Could you click new plant search, Peggy? Oh, no, not Peggy.
Christine.
Christine, thank you.
Oh,
Could you
yeah. Oh, yeah.
click new
Here we go.
plant search? I think we have edible in there as a flag. If it's not in the search interface, we know we have it in the underlying data. Scroll down.
Characteristics.
I know we have it somewhere. If it's not here, but it is in the underlying data. So we do have a data set for edible plants. So that will be made available.
Is that a category you could add, or is that not
Oh,
appropriate?
it's not a category. So it'd be see what you see under recommended uses.
Yes.
It would be under there.
Okay.
And a lot of this, the way this is presented is going to be very different. But we do have a pretty extensive data set for native edible plants. And actually, if you look at the Piedmont Native Plants Guide,
Mhm.
you'll see we have a whole section on edible natives. And actually, if I could walk away from my computer just a second, I can hold it up to the screen so you can see it. Oh, you have a copy. Someone else can. Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
And so the data set for that book is very much the same data set. Is the same team of people that made that book has made this database.
And so, Lonnie, if there is let's say a new development that goes in Albemarle County, is the plantings, they need to be 80% of them need to come from this list. Is that correct?
Well, so there's a little bit of complexity. If it's an Albemarle County project, and this is where Kim can maybe, I think our committee originally recommended 80%, but I think they're actually doing something more along the lines of 95%.
Yeah, well, Rep could speak to that, but the 80% that is that is kind of a county policy is for county lands. So projects that are on county lands. There's no requirement of that nature for developers, for example.
No requirement at all.
Well, there's requirement for canopy cover and for plantings, but not for them to be native.
So the county does have a recommended plants list. And so what we have made sure that any plant that's in this database is a quote unquote recommended plant. But we want to edit, we want to replace the official recommended list that's like published out which includes non-natives as well as natives. So part of this project will hopefully be to make sure that we can more explicitly include a lot of these plants in the official recommended list. So that'll be a data set column too, whether it's in Albemarle County, and it's not the Planning Commission, it's the Architectural Review Board, I believe, isn't it? That has the recommended native plants list.
Well, they do have a list. And so I worked on this. Well, you all worked on it, and then we worked on it together. And then I worked on it with some of the planners in community development. So yes, there's an ARB list, the Architectural Review Board list, but then there's one that's associated with the site plan ordinance. And that's the one that I took all of your feedback from this committee and incorporated into a list that is not going to exclude all non-native plants, but we eliminated a lot of the ones that are just totally inappropriate for this climate or for the changing climate, and included as many natives as possible. And so that list has been provided. It's not been the official published list, and I'm still working on that, but it's going to go along with an update to the whole site plan ordinance. And so that's kind of why it's stalled a little bit, but it's still on my radar, and I'm continuing to keep an eye on it. And I'm going to try to make sure as best I can, that it gets included in that new site plan update, because the old list, like Lonnie said, has a lot of inappropriate species on it. So
yeah, it even has some invasive species on it. I think some. Well, they did make some corrections before. I don't know, but there were things like Bradford pear on it originally. Bradford pear and Nandina and what was the other one? And Burning Bush was originally on it.
Is on there, I think.
mm-hmm. Yeah.
So,
but it's more complicated than just replacing the list that's there with this new list. So that's basically all I could say, is it's more complicated than that, unfortunately.
So when this is done, the other thing in the data set, we will have a flag that will sort of pair, so you'll be able to search this database and return that data set that Kim is talking about. But that's another piece of data that will be in here, so that if a developer wants to say what's the approved list for Albemarle County, they could come in here and do that search as well.
All right.
Rod has a question, but I wanted to ask something too. But Rod, if you want to go first.
Great, thank you. The question I wanted to ask, and with the whether it's the site plan ordinance or the architectural review board lists or the database you're putting together, is there an opportunity to put something in explicitly that says that you should not, or ideally cannot, plant anything that's on the DCR list of invasive plants for the state of Virginia?
That's a great question, and we do have, and we have a list of plants that we've reviewed and rejected. And there is kind of a case that could perhaps be made of a data set of not recommended plants. I will bring that to them. It might be interesting to be able to search on those to say, like, here's a bunch of plants you shouldn't grow. But we have, I know that the committee has always recommended that, as a matter of policy, that the county does not recommend anything on the DCR invasive plant list. Kim, do you know, did that recommendation ever make it anywhere in terms of the plan?
Yeah, I was just going to add, we've had this conversation before, and I think that is a great idea, because the list that we're talking about, which is not this database, the recommended plants list for site plans for developers, is it's a recommended list. And so if they want to plant something that's not on the list, it has to just be approved by the planners, and they might not have that expertise. And so that's something that I think we also need. And I totally agree with you, Rod, because that way, at least if the planners were going to approve something, they would know that they should definitely not approve that, even if it's not on the recommended list.
In fact, two comments to add to this. One is we are hoping to get DCR to the point where they're actually going to start updating their list. And so that's why I want to reference the list as opposed to just take the plants off of it. So that's one comment. The other one just slipped my mind. I'll think of it shortly. Oh, I know what it was. It was the other thing we were looking to do, and I don't know if you can require this at a county level or not, is if a landscape designer or implementer actually puts up is recommending or including a plant on the DCR list, that they have to tell their customer that they're doing that. Because they include these things, but the customers don't know. And then they wake up a year or 2 or 3 later and discover they've got a bunch of invasive plants that have been put into their plantings. So yeah, if we can require them to tell their customers that they're including a DCR listed plant, I think we can drive a lot of these things out of the practice.
I mean, I think part of the complexity, Rod, and Kim could probably chime in on this too, is that there's only certain projects where the county has any review over what gets planted. So it's only if someone's like submits a site plan, or if it's something reviewed by the Architectural Review Board. It's not, there is no, if someone does like a by right subdivision development in Albemarle County, then there is no review of what plants get planted. They plant whatever they want. An exception would be for stormwater facilities. For stormwater facilities, there is a review of what plants get put in the stormwater facilities.
Even if there's not a review, does the county have the power, and is there the option for the county to require people who are in the trade of designing and implementing to tell their customers they're planting a DCR plant, even if it's
there's not enabling legislation for that currently.
That was along my lines, is what are the legal parameters where we can require, you can either call out an invasive plant or require native plants or a certain percentage of native plants. Yeah, and the only thing I could think of was in the view corridors or in certain special things that you're talking about, Lonnie. It seems like in the various corridors that are historic or view corridors in the county, I think that you have to review your plans with the county. But I assume that we could require a percentage of native plants there. Isn't that right? Kim,
Yeah,
I don't, or who knows? I don't know.
I mean, we could, I think within the entry, the area under the purview of the Architectural Review Board, I think we could. But I think, and my hope is that because developers don't like to, my inclination is they don't like to do one thing one place and one thing different another place. I think when they understand that in Charlottesville, that in Albemarle County, we want native plants, that they'll just get used to doing that, because they don't want, if they're required to do it in one spot, because something's in the entry corridor, I'm forgetting the exact terminology, but
yeah, they're view corridors or entry corridors. I can't remember the terms either, but there are a number of them.
Yeah, if it's in one of those areas under the purview of the Architectural Review Board, then I think they'll just, my hope is, since they're like, oh, we were required to do it here, we're doing some other things, it's a by right development, hopefully they'll just do it there too. I mean, I know some developers already. I know that I talked to Charlie Armstrong a lot. I know he's using a lot of native plants now in some of the stuff he's doing, and I think just having the comprehensive plan, like this is something Albemarle County wants to see, is helpful. So that when people present their plans to Albemarle County, they can use it as a selling point for approval of their project. They can say, hey, and we're using 100% natives, or we're using 80% natives, and we can't require that, but certainly if they say that when they put their project forward, it certainly can help. They can make their case that they are in alignment with their comprehensive, with the goals of the county.
Well, along those lines, there's certain areas that the county control, and you mentioned biofilters, their view corridors or entry corridors. There may be other areas where their plant list reviews, and I guess also if there's certain site plans, there's a plant list review, and I'm just wondering, is it possible for the county to have, is that legal for the county to say, we would like to see 85% native plants? I think 100% is not really.
I'll just jump
appropriate.
in to answer the question directly, Ken. And we don't have the authority to require that. But that's why the list is a recommended plant list. And so, but when we review the projects, even the projects where we do review the plantings, we can definitely, make recommendations. And in the case of like a special use permit or a zoning amendment, like Lonnie was saying, then there might be some more reason for a developer to take our recommendations. But
Right,
I don't think we have the authority to make it a requirement.
But it could be a recommendation, and then certainly not, no invasive plants should be on there. So in all those categories, I don't know how if we could get a list of what those are and just have no invasive plants and 85% native.
And it certainly makes sense to have that link to the DCR site that is going to be updated. That seemed like a good suggestion.
Yeah, and they have a nice little spreadsheet too. And, I think, Kim, if we need to have, if it'd be helpful to have some sort of little work session with staff or some sort of like how to use the DCR spreadsheet, it's pretty simple. They sort of have the things divided into tiers. But if ever it'd be helpful for a member of this committee or this committee to have a joint meeting with some other, whoever needs to know about how to use that spreadsheet, I think we'd be willing to do that.
All right. Well, this is an important topic.
That would be useful
course.
for me.
And
So I'd be interested. Yeah. Peggy.
thanks, Peggy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think definitely this sounds like there's a lot of interest in this. And Kim, if there's any way that the NHC can be helpful and to advocate, let us know.
Yeah, I'm going to try to get an update on the site plan ordinance and where they are with that, because it's been a while since I checked in on that. And I provided the list with all of the recommendations from this committee. So I'll get an update for our next meeting so we can follow up with that on that specific item.
All right. Thank you so much. All right. And great. I think that we are going to go ahead and move on to those follow-ups, important site updates, and outreach. I have none to report. Does anybody else? Right, hard to do that with all the snow and to go out.
I will just put in a plug. My wife and I continue to go through the CERNIC data for which is for Albemarle County. We recently went trying to find exploring several sites where Great Southern Cane was reported, and unfortunately they all came up as arrow bamboo, which is a non-native invasive. So we haven't been able to find any Great Southern Cane in Albemarle, and for that matter, we've had great difficulty finding it in Nelson too. So so we're still going through, in CERNIC, for those who don't know, it's a digitized herbarium specimens from across the state. I've talked about it before, and it's searchable with some difficulty. So we're trying to track down some of these historic locations of various things that have been reported and verify them. Climbing fern and Canadian plum are still on my list of things that I would like to verify this next season.
Sounds like a fun project.
It is, and it's nice. Actually, a nice little wintertime activity that you can do is just go in there and search for plants in the database. Some of them don't have the locality information. Like you have to zoom in on the image to figure out what the locality actually is. So there's a little bit of work that you have to do sometimes, but it's worth surfing around in there and seeing what you can find.
Nice. All right,
So
thank
it's-
you. And
Just
spotted,
one last thing,
oh,
on this topic, I was just wondering if it's not legal to prevent, the planting of invasive plants, for example, couldn't you just appear to say no rather than actually saying no? In other words, couldn't you have something on the website that says, do not plant these plants? And you're not actually prohibiting it, you're just saying, do not plant these plants. And plant these plants where, you know, you could just have this, and the county is not taking a truly, you know, they're not saying it's illegal, they're just saying, do not plant these. And have that very clearly and demonstratively on the site where you recommend, you know, at the recommended plant list.
Well, we're kind of going back to the previous topic on this, but I think there's a packet. There used to be, I don't know what it is now, but there used to be like a packet of information for applicants for, you know, sites, and there's just a bunch of items in that packet. And I think just including some sort of standard thing like, okay, well, here's your application. Now, here's a list of invasive plants we don't want people to plant. I think there may be some wiggle room to put something like that in there or a link to it.
Right, it could be red letters, you know, it could be just red letters that say, do not plant these plants. You're not doing anything illegal. I mean, you're not preventing them from doing that. You're just saying, do not do it. Just like you say, don't, you know, don't park the wrong way in the parking lot or something like that. It's a recommendation, but it's very demonstratively said.
I think the Architectural Review Board has great discretion. I've seen them deny, if they can deny something because of the color of brick, they can certainly deny a project because of it has invasive species. They could just say, you know, they could make a determination that Nandina is ugly, and it is. So, you know, they could just make that determination that Bradford pears and Nandina are just ugly in the same way that maybe purple brick would be ugly. And we don't approve projects for that.
I think generally doing your job on an architectural review board, I think you'd have to have a reason for that, and more than a personal feeling that's ugly. Well, I mean, I think all the time they say that, but I think there could be reasons that it doesn't fit the placeful quality of the view corridor, that the aesthetics of the view corridor don't match that, that it's not a regionally typical plant, or it's not a culturally or, you know, typical plant. I think that kind of thing. But I was just wondering, is that something that can be more demonstrative on the website? Do this and don't do that without having to say that it's prohibited.
Yeah, and I think that's along the lines of what Rod was saying as well. So yeah, yes, I think that is a possibility.
I mean, you could have big red letters, you know, it just could be very demonstrative. Do not plant these plants. These are, I mean, it's sort of tragic. In my neighborhood, you know, just around the block, there's someone just put in a whole bunch of a big line of euonymus, and it's now it's spreading all over down by the Ravenna, just down the hill. You know, it's just like people don't know these things. So
would it be helpful?
Can we include trees as well? Since the spotted lanternfly seems to like the trees.
Yeah. And I'm wondering, would it be helpful for this committee to write a letter to the Architectural Review Board? I mean, I think it sounds like there are lots of, that we should delve into it further after getting an update from Kim, because it sounds like it is something important that we should follow through with and look for opportunities where we can make a difference.
Or maybe there's the opportunity, I wonder if we could invite someone from the Architectural Review Board to this committee to talk about what they do and have a dialogue about plants.
That's a really good idea.
Yeah, I've always thought, like, when somebody goes in to get a building permit, is there a packet that they get that could be included in that packet, a link to the native plant list, and a link to these are the plants you want to avoid planting on your property.
yeah, it's a good idea. I mean, what we've identified is there's several areas where the county can make recommendations and does, and there's several things where the county reviews, right? Biofilters, for example. There's certain, you know, stormwater regulations, those things. Those are areas where there, and the view corridors. So those are, let's try to address all of those. There's several places.
Yeah.
So, well, we
All
can continue.
Yeah, I think it's important. It's an important topic and it needs attention. And so really pushing, where are there ways that we can make a difference? And thank you, Kim, for getting us an update on that for our next meeting. But thank you for the conversation. Does anybody have anything to add about the spotted lanternfly? It will be upon us soon, I imagine.
Probably.
Hopefully not in Albemarle County, but
I'll just share quickly in case folks missed it, that the David Giannino came to present to the board yesterday. And it was just a brief presentation, but I think it was good for educational awareness. And there was a follow-up from a news outlet. So I think there might be more press about it because of that. So that's good.
One of the obvious question is whether the county has any appetite to take out Atlantis.
yeah.
Well, I don't have an answer like for the whole county point of view, but actually just had a conversation about this yesterday with the watershed stewardship manager, Laura Williamson, and she manages all of the stormwater facilities in the county. And actually, I think Nicola is on this call, but anyway, Wild Ginger is managing some of the invasives on those facilities. And I believe that she's recommending they remove all the Atlantis. So at least it's a starting point. And we've had this conversation with Parks and Rec, and we're going to continue having that conversation. So I don't know that there's like a county-wide, because there's schools and Parks and Rec and stormwater. So there's a lot of different entities. But I think we are working on it, piece by piece.
And what would be great is to actually get some press. It'd be great. It's like, this is happening. The county are taking steps, and maybe that can serve as a model for other people, landowners, a push.
Well, I will offer one of the takeaways from yesterday's meeting. At the end of the meeting was the call from, and I forget who it was, Kim, you may remember, that the briefing gets taken to all the citizen advisory committees. And I thought that was a really good step in the right direction to get the word out there. Out beyond the supervisors, out to the community. So, maybe there's a role for us to help play there in some way, or just to continue to encourage BDACs to spread the word.
Kim, I wonder, since the county has its own conservation grant program through the conservation district, the Albemarle Conservation Assistance Program, I wonder if, there could be some discussions about including Atlantis removal as something that could be cost shared through that ACAP program.
Yeah, it would be a conversation, I think, with the Soil and Water Conservation District, right? So since they manage that program, but it's possible.
Well, if I may.
I don't know if it falls into any of the categories, because that program follows the VCAP program.
Well,
so I'm not sure.
Yeah, so that's with my other hat on the Water Resources Committee of the Thomas Jefferson Stormwater Conservation District. We give a lot more, we allow for program discretion within localities. So the way it works is every application goes through VCAP first to see if we can get funding through VCAP. But if there's practices that VCAP won't fund, then we do fund them through CCAP or ACAP. So if there are things that are priorities for Albemarle County that are not priorities for VCAP, that may include things like invasive species, then they could be part of that program. It's just a question of the locality that's sponsoring that program and wanting that thing in there. And of course, it had to be a conversation with Ann Coates, but I think But yeah, the short answer is I think it's something that could be worth discussion.
All right.
I,
Yeah.
oh, I heard Rod. I don't know.
Yeah, Rod, you had your hand up.
Yeah, I just wanted to reiterate that, we do have a flyer ready to go. If the county wants to, send out the spotted lanternfly, Atlantis flyer to the landowners in the county. It can be done on relatively short notice as long as the Postal Service is capable of delivering it.
Thanks, Rod.
Yeah, strategically timed, right? When this was also key.
Well, strategic timing would mean starting relatively soon.
Yesterday, right?
No, not yesterday, but in the next couple months.
Yeah.
Did we ever answer those questions about the flyer from the other time? I had asked things like, I guess, who all was involved and who made the decisions about it. And some of them probably were answered, and it's just been, I feel like it's been ages since we've met. Was there any more on that? I mean, I don't even think I have still seen it. I think I missed one when it was shared. Or maybe, I don't even know. I don't even know what I'm talking about, but there was some weirdness about where it came from and where it was going.
Well,
So, yeah, go ahead. You can speak to that, Rod, because that was like you.
well,
you
the answer is
describing for it.
there are a variety of people involved in putting it together, including myself. But it was also Christine. I believe it went through some level of review with you in the county, and in terms of doing a trial distribution of it, yeah, I personally did that.
I remember that and being appalled about the Postal Service delivery.
Right.
But it's not a county thing. It's an outside the county thing. Okay, I think that helps me. Thank you.
Well, it's written.
That's right.
So it's written so it can be a county thing.
Well, yes. I mean, they're somewhat, I think there's the engagement office would want to have some oversight about what goes out in the county's name, but we don't currently have any resources for that. But we did send out the alert in August through the email and social media outlets, and I think we can do that again. The mailing is a bit more complicated because it requires funds that we don't have an invasive species program with a budget for that.
If somebody found the funding, would you do it?
We can talk about it.
Well, that there's a chicken.
It's not up to me. I mean, I wouldn't make the final decision, but I mean,
Right.
we can talk about the logistics of that. I don't know how that would work.
Okay.
It would certainly be in the interest of the county to do something like that, for us to get that information out, right? But, well, I hope that could be something that can be pursued, and in the meantime, it will take everybody working to get the word out. Continuing those social media and blasting with the emails. Of course, that just has a limited reach, though, as well.
Now, Christine, that's one thing that we might incorporate with the Instagram program that we just talked about in the previous meeting, to find a way to slide the spotted lanternfly into one of those.
Yeah, we do have invasives in there, but that's a good thought, is like pulling out one of those things that we have lined up and switching it out with that. All right, well, we're going to go ahead and move on. Thank you for that discussion. We have staff update, Kim.
Yeah, so I'll be quick because I know there's a lot of other things on the agenda, but I did want to just provide an update about the database that I mentioned last time, which is related to our upcoming discussion about the goals and recommendations of the BAP. And so I'm working on this database with someone who has more IT experience than I do. But I'm building that out based on the goals and recommendations of the BAP and hoping to kind of fill in all of the action items that we worked on and that we're working on to track progress and see, you know, how we're doing and what we still need to work on. So that is coming along, and I think it's going to be one challenge is just making it accessible to you all outside of the county. So I think I'm going to be developing some kind of tool where it's maybe just like a simple entry form where you can enter it and it would go up into the database without having to actually physically access the database from the front end. So that's exciting. There's also an invasive team that is forming that I will be leading with other folks from different departments, including Parks and Rec. We've talked about having the invasive plant task force, like the James River Task Force. And so we're kind of exploring different options and ideas of what could happen in county parks. And I am working with them. And so we're essentially working internally first, and then we'll loop in outside partners to figure out, you know, where we go from there when we figure out those first steps. So that's exciting. And also related to that, another project that's starting is an update to our sustainable operations policies. And that includes a great many things, as you can imagine. But one of the things is that's included in that is management of county lands, which obviously is some of the goals of the BAP and things we've talked about before. So I think there's going to be great opportunity there. And I'm excited to bring the voice of this committee to that team as well as we go ahead and start updating those with things like, you know, Christine's mowing projects and thinking about mowing on county, you know, local government managed lands, but maybe also schools, because I think there will be schools representatives on that team as well. So, and then thinking about other things like climate and, you know, sustainable materials and all of those things. So that's exciting. Really quickly update on the Wildlife Quarters Project. Bridget Donaldson and I met earlier this month, or in January rather, with a whole bunch of folks from the Charlottesville residency and also from Richmond about the Southern Albemarle Mountains project, and also some of the transportation planning team from the county. So that was very exciting to kind of bring all those people together and start thinking about ways to fund the project moving forward, and hopefully actually install some improvements at some of those crossing sites. It's going to be down the line. It's very, you know, the grant processes are, you know, years in the making. So it's not anything that's going to happen immediately, but I'm excited about that. And then one last thing is this new landowner education project that I updated the education group on earlier this afternoon. So we are working on the stewardship hub on the website, and once it's a little further along, I will get feedback from all of you and suggestions as to how to incorporate some of the ideas that you have there as well. So unless there's questions, I think that's it.
Kim, that's super exciting. And also we had talked about potentially having the new parks. Oh, so is it a volunteer coordinator? Planner, park planner.
Yeah. Volunteer coordination is one of his job responsibilities. So yeah, definitely we'll bring him into this conversation, the conversation we've had about volunteers and invasives in county parks.
And we had also talked about maybe even inviting him to our next meeting as a possibility. Although it sounds like there is a lot of interest in really diving into this whole thing with the native plant database and invasive plants. So, you know, we could really jump into that more as well. Lonnie, did you have a question?
Mute. Yes, so I did. Two questions. Any update on the stream health initiative or the comprehensive plan?
So yes, the Stream Health Initiative is still one of my, top projects that I'm working on. So in December, I brought all of the proposals to the board. So we met after that, and there's a lot of support from the board. And so some of those projects are starting now. The ones that have been supported that don't require additional resources. And the rest of them, we've submitted budget requests, but really can't begin until the board approves the budget for this new fiscal year in July. So yeah, some of those are in progress and some are sort of on hold until we understand better what that picture is going to look like. And inevitably, because there's 14 projects, they're not all going to, most likely have support in the budget, so that some of them will put in a budget request next year if they don't come through this year. But yeah, so that work is all moving forward, and the comp plan process is also moving forward. And I don't have any update on that beyond, what's been publicly available. They're forming that working group, and the application just opened, I think, this week for folks who want to be in the comprehensive plan working group. And so, yeah, that's going to be picking up real soon.
I did put in my application for the comprehensive plan working group. We'll see if I get on there. It'd be nice to have some representation from this committee on there if we could manage it. But in terms of the Stream Health Initiative, are there any particular items that staff is working on with the Stream Health Initiative where our policy group could provide some input or guidance? Because I know a lot of those weren't fully fleshed out. We will be meeting next week. So if there are some items that we could provide guidance on, I'd appreciate knowing what those are so we can spend some time looking at them.
Okay. Yeah, I think there are, and I'll follow back up with you, Lonnie, once I think through that and see about, the timing and what would make sense with this group.
Great. Thanks.
All right. Thank you, Kim. Always, you've got a lot of exciting things going on. So
I just wanted to ask if that, yeah, following up with that, the Stream Health Initiative, if that can be written, Kim, if that can be written, if you send it to Lonnie or something, just so your ideas can be written down, I think that would be helpful. And then I'm interested in the wildlife corridor. Is there anything that's a grant that you're applying for with the state? Is that right?
Oh yeah, we're nowhere near actual applying for grants, but I'm looking into the Transportation Alternatives Program as a possibility. I think, yeah, there's a few more steps before that. So it's not actually going to be submitted until 2023. But we need to, figure out how to hire a consultant to get cost estimates first. So there's a lot, it's a very big project. There's a lot of steps going on, but eventually we'll get to applying for a grant, I hope. And then in terms of the Stream Health Initiative, all of the proposals are published on the website. So if you're interested in more detail on that, I can direct you to that as well if you haven't seen it already. It's all written up in great
Well,
detail.
I was just thinking of anything that you're sending to Lonnie, if it could be written somehow, or you send us the link or something so that we focus on a certain area, that would be helpful.
Okay.
So rather than just us free-form discussing, we'd have something to latch onto when we meet next week. And then, the wildlife corridor sounds really interesting. I just was wondering where that is. I have no idea what area you're talking about. So is there a graphic that shows what you're looking at, or what's the scale of what you're looking at, or what,
Yeah, I could share a map that I made for the VDOT presentation that I did to the group in January. And I've presented to this group also, but you may have missed it. So yeah, I can share that map with you. It's along Route 29 South between, Charlottesville and the Nelson boundary. There's 3 sites that we're focusing in on that are, the Hardware River and Cove Creek, essentially.
That would be great just to email it. I don't know everyone doesn't mind having the email sent to them, but if you could just send it to the group, that would be fantastic. Yeah, I guess I wasn't at that meeting.
Sure.
The Red Hill site is particularly fascinating to me because it's near one of our special sites. So I think it's the idea of also having wildlife connectivity there and also having one of our biodiversity hotspots in close proximity. That's very interesting to me.
Yeah. All right, you guys, we are going to thank you, Kim, and we're going to move on to probably the not much fun part of this meeting, but I think it is necessary and important is to think about these, because we're going to be reporting to the Board of Supervisors on a fiscal year basis. And so the next report is going to be due at the end of June. And so I had been trying to encourage everybody to use this rolling work plan. And I wonder if people, and I asked, I think several times to get some feedback on this to see whether this is of value and useful for people to use this format to keep track of what we've accomplished and what our goals are. And so I know Lonnie has added to it, and wondering if anybody else has had an opportunity to do that. And Michael, you've added to it as well. So it'd be great to just get your feedback. Does it just not work for people? Or should we continue to use it as a way to organize our moving forward, organize our goals?
I think it's very helpful, this Lonnie.
Okay, anybody else?
I was going to just make a suggestion. If you could move the priority high, low, medium into a separate column, then it might be searchable, or we could put the high priority stuff at the top and the mid stuff in the middle and the low stuff at the bottom.
Yeah, and really, I think that's a good suggestion. I kept those there from the last time we evaluated it, so we could go through and we can change those priorities. But yeah.
Well, and we ought to use the copy or the one that you've prioritized yourself and kind of work off of that, like I suggested earlier.
Yeah. Yeah, I can definitely make another column for the prioritization.
Thanks.
This is Peggy. Just, my name's been there for about removing invasives on Old Mill Trail, but I sort of feel like that should be something that be coordinated with the Ravenna Trails people. I mean, they do so many volunteer work days, and I'm a member, but I haven't really gotten involved with that, but I just don't like it's something I could actually take on myself. But
one thing, if you were interested in doing this, Peggy, would be reaching out to them and saying,
okay.
we would love to see this happen. This is a really important place. Have you considered?
Yeah.
And
well,
then,
I could try to do that, maybe take some people I'm sure they're aware of what's what, but it's sort of becoming daunting now, the invasives everywhere. So, okay, I'll try to do that. That's something I can do. I don't think I could really get a work group together myself, but perhaps they can get their volunteer, core volunteer groups. Yeah.
I think that that's the way we should think about it is, can you chip away at it to make progress? And you may come back and say,
I can't do it.
not really interested. We need to look elsewhere.
Yeah. Okay. I'll start with that and then see where I can go from there. Yeah.
Yeah, that would be great. And then as the information that you get or any conversations that you have, if you can update this document, then that we can all look at it. And then when we do the report, we have a sense of what things did we try? Where did we go with it? What happened to it?
Okay.
If
That's
that
a
makes
good point.
sense.
Yeah. Okay, good.
Yeah, thanks.
Good work. I'm having a hard time here, Mike.
You've had a rough winter.
I've had a heck of a month, but my wrist has been bothering me. I fractured my wrist week and a half ago. So for some reason, it's bothering me more today than it has in a while. So that's why I've been kind of quiet tonight.
Christine, do
any-
we have a mapping tool that shows where invasive species are in the county? And city?
Everywhere.
Well, I understand, but I mean, we survey everything else. I just wondering if we have identified, a basic mapping or location for invasives.
I don't think so.
I think they're ubiquitous. They seem to be a few little spots where they aren't, but certain.
Yeah, I think that would be the better approach. What areas are free or relatively free of them? Perhaps maybe that's the right approach to take.
Yeah, it's a figure ground.
Yeah. All right, Leah, you had your hand up, and then Kim, and then Lonnie.
Yes, thank you. I put a lot of information in early on or a while back on this form, and I guess I've struggled a little bit with what level of detail to provide. And so basically you're going to, or theoretically, we are going to be taking information from this rolling work plan and consolidating it for a yearly report for the Board of Supervisors. Is that? So it needs to be pretty high level, and yet if a lot of actions have been taken, we just need to provide a higher level summary of it, I guess. Because I mean, if things have been going on for like a year, then you can't have a lot of items.
Yeah, I think to provide a quick summary, and also what I've done in some cases, just provide a link to, a document that you've placed in the NHC drive. So that's another way to, link out for more information, but to just kind of give the big picture of what's been accomplished.
So then will this actual form go to the Board of Supervisors then?
No.
So who will use the link?
Well, I mean, we could use it for each other and for our own information.
Okay.
So like if you already have a document, for example, you created that really nice document thinking about the workshop. So rather than putting all the information about the workshop in this little box, you could just simply link that document.
Oh, got it. Okay.
So you could say, working on workshop about wildlife corridors in the Crozet area, see this doc.
Okay, thanks.
I hope that's helpful. Kim?
If I may, Christine, yeah. So this is kind of related to your question, Leah, and also the question of that you asked of Christine, if this is useful. And so I think originally the purpose of this document is, yes, it will eventually be summarized by Christine, and I like to create the annual report for the board. But it's also meant to be a tool for this group to sort of focus on what are the highest priority goals and specific actions that individual committee members are interested in working on. And then just keeping track of that and where we are and what we've already done. And that is related to the database I mentioned earlier, where I'm going to try to track, progress on the goals and recommendations of the BAP, because we'll be updating the BAP fairly soon. And that is going to be a really important component to sort of say, like, this is what we've done so far since the first BAP in 2018 was finalized, and, where we plan to go from here. So I think there's, multiple uses for it, but hopefully that's helpful. I think it would be useful for that purpose as well.
Yeah, and I think that the idea is to focus our efforts and so that we know that they are directly related to the goals that are outlined in the BAP. And also, for me, it provides a little bit of accountability. I said I was going to do something. Did I do it? And then I can say, and it's really quite satisfying. Yes, I did that. And then I could just put a little note in there. And that it just helps us to all keep track of what's going on. And really, I would really love it. And I think I've said it a couple times, just if each and every one of us could pick those actionable items between now and June, maybe it's one thing, maybe it's two things that you think you can accomplish and share that with the group, and then, move forward on it, and then add it to this document. Lonnie.
Yeah, so two things, going back to the question that was asked about invasive species, it's important to remember iNaturalist is a great resource for, for mapping things. So if you do encounter particularly new occurrences of like new invasive species, snap a picture with iNaturalist and make sure to record that there, because we can use that data. The other thing that occurs to me too is, one thing that's been on my, we haven't brought it up explicitly as a goal, but I've wanted to, we have this list of rare plants for the county, and I've thought for a while, maybe this could be brought up with the education committee. It'd be nice to do like, kind of like wanted posters, like have you seen posters for people, so that if people have seen those plants, they can report them to us. So if there are other occurrences of those plants in the county that we don't know about, that we can be made aware.
Yeah. And yeah, I think that's a good idea. I think that we just get ourselves focused in. And so what I'm going to do is if you don't mind, I'm going to share with you what I ended up doing. And I hope perhaps you've seen this, as I went through the BAP and I pulled the goals out that I thought that I could, personally work on. And then I just kind of laid them all out. And then I also shared them with all of you. So the things that I was going to put my energy towards in the next few months, which will include working on the conservation mowing area at Darden Tow and pushing that forward, doing some educational outreach with the Jefferson Madison Regional Library. So I've tried to list those things out. And then Emma, doesn't have to be the list that I've had, but Emma has shared the things that she is going to be working on, creating visual aids, posters, infographics, and she's already begun this Instagram post. And her and I know Michael's working on this, is educating the public through webinars, talks, and tabling events. So really trying to be explicit about the things that we're going to be working on. And then, Leah, is it okay if I share what you sent me?
Sure.
Which is quite impressive. So
well, it's going to take a lot of time.
Yeah, it's an ambitious project, but I just really appreciate the way Leah really laid it out. She listed the goals, and then she really nicely organized a plan of attack and how she's going to approach this.
Nice.
And so it's really great because we can all see where she's headed, and we can also, I can say, I can support you in this way, or I can, each of us can chime in and help each other. And so that was sort of my hope for each of us, to actually go through the BAP and pick those things. It could be one, it could be two things, those steps that you as an individual can take to move us forward, that is actionable. And one of the things I just want to bring this up right now is with the policy committee, I was wondering if perhaps, we have the ability, as I read through the BAP, one of the things we're charged with is to advise the Board of Supervisors. So, for example, we could think of, Kate has already sent a letter out to the board, but to pick maybe two more topics that are timely, where we can communicate to the board that this thing is important for them to pay attention to at this moment, and to draft those letters and to get them to them. And maybe it sounds like there's a lot of interest in reaching out to the Architectural Review Board, or I don't know, maybe that's not the direction right now, but to really kind of set those clear goals about what you want to communicate and who we're going to communicate to.
Yeah,
So I'm
we
just
currently
gonna
have
throw
a,
that out.
yeah, we currently do have a list of policy ideas, a spreadsheet of different.
And there's a lot on there.
There
Yeah.
is, and so we have that set up with a sort of a metric of prioritization for that. So if you don't have to be on the policy committee to provide input on that spreadsheet. So if people haven't gone there and looked at that, I encourage people to look at that. And if there's an item on there that you feel is missing or that you feel deserves more attention, then please let us know.
Yeah. And so there are a couple ideas that I have. One would be to speak in support of the ACE program and to make sure that we can have a voice in that, and to reiterate the importance of these land conservation programs and why they're there and the value of them. And so I think that that would be a timely topic for the board to hear from us about. So that's one suggestion I have. The other, I don't know how timely this is, but there is an issue around lighting and our lighting ordinance. And I don't know how many of you are familiar with the situation at the Moores Creek facility, and there was wrong lighting was installed, and several people are quite concerned about the lighting trespass, and just that particular spot, the Moores Creek treatment plant, it's just right below Monticello. It's right off of 64. The light trespasses into the city of Charlottesville. So there's been a lot of discussion about, is there a place, the push to update Albemarle County's lighting ordinance. So those are two topics that I'm particularly interested in. And again, very pleased with Kate, stepping forward and sending her letter about salt on the roads. But I think that that's a real place that we can have some actionable step, and it's in the BAP to provide advice or consultation with the board on these matters.
Also, we had the presentation, I guess it was in December, or was it November, on the climate initiative the county is doing. Is that also, I don't know what the dates are of that, but is that also another timely thing that the policy committee would review? Could review that, what's going on now, and make comments?
Well, Kim, I don't think is it comment time for that, but I think the one thing that I think is really advantageous for us at this moment is that it sounds like even with the comprehensive plan update, things are going to be looked at through the lens of climate change. And so I think there's a real commitment that the county has. So anything that we ask for or anything that we bring up to the board, I think it's advantageous to bring it up through the lens of climate. So if we talked about the outdoor lighting ordinance, for example, it would be its effect on wildlife, but also how it fits into the climate action plan. So.
Yeah, lighting, I don't see how lighting is directly connected to that other than energy. Lighting seems to be more affecting wildlife, I would think, in biodiversity. But a lot of other things I think that we're talking about would conjoin well with climate. I mean, the lighting I think is really an interesting one and an important one, and the county can really be a model for other areas, for doing that, having a dark sky policy. But so it seems like the climate would be another thing that is right up there where we could have an effect and comment right now, if we're talking about actionable items. If we're trying to pick, some things are lower priority than others, obviously, and some are higher. I'm trying to figure out what the higher priority things are. So on this document, the Natural Heritage Committee rolling work plan, who has put the high and low priorities there? Are those designated because those are things that are coming up for review with the board or being discussed, or what's the designation for high and low priority?
We went through this last year. And I just left the priorities there. So this was something that we did last year. And so what I did is I just copied what we had, there were old committee members on there, and I just took any items, any things that had happened since July of 2021,
Mhm.
and I just put those items in there. But in terms of prioritizing, it needs to be reprioritized.
Well, that's what I was thinking. I mean, in some ways, if we had a calendar that we were looking at, we could see, you know, these things that are coming before the board, or things that are initiatives that are happening within the county, and that we knew what was coming down the pike, then we'd know how to prioritize. Or that we just think it's particularly important, like, you know, looking at Dardental Park, for example, which I'm also doing. We're both doing, I think, Christine. You know, that's important, but it's not necessarily a high priority with getting it right in front of the board, because they're going to be looking at the comprehensive plan or something like that.
Yeah.
So it's just, I guess that somehow to connect what we're doing with the chronology of the county and the things that they're doing, you know, the county administration.
Yeah, I really understand what you're saying with that, because there's a lot on that list. And so, and sometimes it's hard to know where do we get the best bang for our buck?
Exactly.
right?
It's like, how can we fit with the rhythm of the county and what they're needing for us to review and reply back on? You know, how do we fit in with that? And that's, other than keeping up, you know, I guess if you were keeping up with every meeting and knowing what was coming down the pike, but.
I would say right now, I would say as a priority is to speak in favor of the ACE program, because there is there's a little bit, feels like there are people who are questioning the value of that program. And so to just make sure that the board understands that, yes, there are, to remind them of why this program is so important and the value of it, because others have spoken questioning the value of the program, as I understand it. So I don't know if that's 100% helpful, but
Well, I should be more of an advocate for it. I think it's useful, but I don't know it well enough to argue the finer details. That would probably be something we should, all of us, get familiar with. I'm not as familiar with it, so if that's something we should read about, I'll read about it.
But you know, Kenan, I'm wondering if, like, for you in particular, your expertise lies in plants and landscaping. So maybe there's a place for when we talk about when somebody goes to get a building permit, is there a way that they could have a little flyer in there that says, please do this before you plant? You know, maybe that's a place that you could focus your energy onto.
That's certainly an area, but what we do is planning, and my training is in broader things than only plants.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm on this list as I'm looking at Dardental. I've been, you know, that was before I took time off from the committee, but I need to follow up with that.
Yeah. All right. And Lonnie, you've got your hand up, and Michael.
Yeah, just one comment. So I can, like, some of those things that you mentioned are on our policy idea list. So some of them, like the lighting one, we've struggled with that one. So if there's someone that's really interested in that, we need sponsors for different policy ideas, someone that's willing to carry something forward. And for that particular one, we need something like you cited an example of one area where lighting is a problem. So I think what we need for things like that is someone to say, like, go visit the site where lighting is clearly a problem, have the county's ordinance in hand, and say, if the county's ordinance was adjusted to say this, and this, then clearly this would not be allowed. Or if we had additional money for enforcement, this wouldn't have happened. Or to figure out what is going on with that particular situation, with that particular lighting, that could be fixed by a different policy. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I agree.
And so it's been hard to move that forward, because we've had people come to the policy committee says, well, lighting is really a problem, but haven't given us like, change this word from this to that, which is really what we need to move that forward.
And
And
I think with that, I agree. And with that in particular, I just have gotten involved in this conversation. And there's Phil Ayana, who's astronomy professor at UVA. And he seems to has some expertise. So, maybe there's a way to connect him with the policy group. And
If I may, Christine,
yeah,
just real quick, to Kennan's point, though, I don't think it's a bad idea to look at the lighting ordinance and, make recommendations, but you'll recall when Margaret was here that ordinance is not on the schedule to be updated anytime soon. And so to Kennan's point, trying to look at all of these recommendations and goals that this group has and thinking about what is currently a focus for the county, like the comprehensive plan, obviously, like Christine mentioned, the land conservation programs, and things like Biscuit Run, which, is a pretty specific item, but it is really up there in terms of, what the county is focused on right now. So I think there might be value in considering what Kenan said with respect to this exercise as well, to focus on things that really are the focus of the county right now as well.
I absolutely agree with that. And that's, sometimes for me, I'm not keeping track of all those details, but I'm happy that you reminded me about the lighting ordinance, that's got to be something that's down the road. And that's why having you, Kim, here is so valuable to us, to be that liaison to help us kind of keep track of all of it.
I had to unmute myself. So here's a question. Is there a list, Kim, that you think is the high priorities right now? If you're, is that something where you could have a document that you could just cross out, or is there any kind of chronological piece of paper, something graphic or written that we can look at and say, oh, well, here are the 5 things that are being worked on, and you've mentioned some that, there's the grant you're working on with Wildlife Corridor, there's the stream initiative, there are these things, but keeping that in front of us so that we know what is the best.
Yeah, I mean, I think, unfortunately, like the example of the lighting ordinance, I didn't know that until Margaret came to speak to our group, because I just has started with the county 2 years ago. So I don't have that long history of, when things have been updated and when they'll be the focus. I mean, obviously, the comprehensive plan is the big upcoming thing for the county. And to answer your question, Ken, about the climate plan, that actually climate is, like Christine said, going to be a focus through all the work. But that plan is not open for review and comment right now. They actually just adopted it a few months ago. So that we could have maybe like a work session and work through things, and then I can find out the answer to ones we don't know. But I also have to follow along with the board agendas and kind of figure out what's going on or what the hot topics are right now too. So we kind of have to figure it out together. I don't just have all that knowledge in my belt.
It's a lot of moving parts.
It's a lot, yeah.
The climate action plan has been stopped, is that right? Or it's on hold, or no, it's been completed?
Oh, no. I mean, it's been adopted, and like Christine said,
Right.
The program is being developed now, the implementation phase. So sort of,
Right.
well, it's bigger than the BAP, but like the BAP, we're in this implementation phase now, trying to figure out how to implement the climate action plan. And so it's certainly important.
Well, and I just wanted to say, Christine, because you brought up lighting, and before I forget, I want to throw this out, because this is much like native plants. It's very similar. We also do lighting. That's something that residential lighting is extremely primitive. It's all like, it's not low cutoff. Most of it it's total light pollution, and many municipalities are putting in Washington globes, which are light fixtures, that is just a big round, ball of glass. It's blasting light in all directions as opposed to downward, which helps with a low cutoff light, which puts light down. So that's something that's, again, another area where I don't know how much power the county can take to compel, but and maybe more so than with plants, because that's a real area where there's potentially a lot of control that could be done, and I don't know if it can legally be done, but you could control a lot more light being released into the sky than is being done now. And on the residential scale, that is just, there's very little good lighting possibilities. I mean, it's really, when you start looking at like typical lights for lanterns and things for residences, it's remarkable how bad the selections are.
Yeah, yeah. Well, thank you, Kim, for reminding me about when the update is happening. So we should be prepared and, to be able to speak to that when that comes up in that timely way. Lonnie, you had your hand up, and did Carolyn have?
Oh, yes, sorry. I did have another thing about the climate. Kim, as staff is working through that, there's definitely crossover between the climate action plan and the biodiversity action plan. Who is working on the implementation of that? Is there opportunities for us to provide input to those people working on that implementation
Of the climate action plan?
Yes.
Well, so we have a climate program team, and I'm on the team. Gabe, who came to speak to our group, and Irtifa, who is with the Office of Equity and Inclusion, and Serena Engagement, and Greg Harper. So there's a number of people on the core program team. And so we are developing, really with Gabe taking the lead, but how to kind of roll it out through every department in the county and every, operations, facilities and environmental services, basically everything that the county does. So hopefully, like Christine said, that climate lens will be built in, like the equity lens, to, all of the work that we do throughout the county. So yeah, I don't know if that answers your question, but certainly if you have specific suggestions, you can bring them through me, or we can invite Gabe back here. I'm sure he'd be more than happy to come back.
Right. I guess there are definitely parts of that impinge upon that relate to biodiversity. For example, obviously, encouraging tree planting or something like that has, both a biodiversity benefit and also, a climate benefit. Or to the degree that those things come up, maybe you could just convey them to us. Like if you could report those back to us, or maybe keep notes like, this has crossover with biodiversity. I'll bring it back to the Natural Heritage Committee so that we can at least hear about it, because we may have valuable input on how that could be implemented.
Okay, sure.
Michael, did you have is your hand up, Michael?
It is.
Okay.
I just wanted to say, shout out a thank you to Kate for her recent letter to the Board of Supervisors. And it gets to, I think, a bigger point, is the relationship between some of the personal issues that maybe we're working on, or that we are working on behalf of the committee. She and I both have written about salt in the last month. She wrote a letter to the Board of Supervisors, or he sent an email to Board of Supervisors. I and ultimately several others who ended up editing something I put together have posted something on the Master Gardener website about salt. And there's a lot of issues. If you drill down into what Kate sent to the Board of Supervisors, there's a lot of things that would fill up some of the blank spaces, I think, in our matrix that you put together regarding the work plan. I think we need time to sit down together and just brainstorm how some of this work fits in here, because I think that's the problem. We're just not putting our heads together as a group, as opposed, and God bless us all for being able to do Zoom, but I just don't feel like we're being very effective trying to use Zoom to accomplish some of this. As we begin to, loosen up the way we communicate, if we could get together and do some work together, brainstorm together, I think we can help you prepare for some of the things that you're looking at here in the next several months and get ahead of that.
Yeah, it definitely is challenging to try to do it via Zoom in a short constricted time frame.
But we seem to have some common goals.
Absolutely.
Whether it's spotted lanternfly and invasive species, or salt on the road and water quality and killing wildlife and so forth. Why or not killing wildlife? These are all things that fit into the map somewhere. We just need to be more creative and intent about filling it up.
Yeah.
I mean, not just filling it up for the sake of filling it up, but actually accomplishing some of those objectives.
Yeah, and what I'm hoping is that people will take the initiative. For example, salt on the roads. Where does that fit? What goal does that fit under in the BAP? Identify it and just go ahead and add it to this rolling work plan.
Right.
And just say, okay, that's a BAP goal. This is the key action item. This is the step that was taken. This is who took it. This is when it happened. So I just want to invite everybody to use this document to do that.
Okay.
And I know, I know it's hard to do it together. So it's like the next best thing is that, spending some time individually, going through it and saying, okay, what have I done? Where does this fit in? And can I go ahead and document it?
Okay, great.
And in the meantime, right, until we can actually get together and meet and flesh it out, because that, of course, that would be the ideal way to do this.
Right. Well, I mean, that's, if we're not meeting in a full meeting environment, then at least a couple of us could get together, if we have time available to kind of work on this. So
yeah,
doesn't have to be just restricted to meeting time and Zoom time.
absolutely. Yeah.
Except for those pesky meeting rules.
Yeah, you'll have to do it one-on-one. Find a partner and jump in.
Kate, I'm trying to help you, Kate.
Michael, I'm glad to get together with you if you want to. I'm similarly frustrated. I think we need to I'm glad to pick some issues and work with people, pick some issues, put things together, bring them back to the whole committee, whatever works.
Yeah.
On the road salt thing, simply, I had to act immediately. So.
Me too.
Yep.
Thanks.
Yeah. And yeah, I'd love to see that action in this document. So is it of use or value for us to begin to look at this document and to go through it and to prioritize? Would that be of value in the time that we have left? We only have like 15 minutes left.
Can I ask one other question?
Yeah.
Would this break down into the, not now the committee structure, because we did away with that, but the group structure where we're talking about policy and education and outreach, and what's the third one?
Wildlife corridors.
Wildlife, okay. So how about if those of us in those groups work on what we could identify as the goals that fall within the purview of those folks working on these three areas? Is that a possibility?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, if the policy committee, when you guys meet, could have this document in front of you, and, nothing is set in stone here. And so you can, if you decide as a policy group that you're going to, for example, do a recommendation about the ACE program, you could just put it in here, right, high priority, and describe your action step. This document is for all of us, and it's just an organizing document. So I definitely give you that invitation to do that. Absolutely.
Is the document in a format that we can make additions to it in terms of additional columns to help organize things if we want to? Not change the original document, but something that we can work with if we were to choose to?
Oh, if you want to add a column for the prioritization, you can, because it's a Google Doc. And so all of you have editing privileges.
Okay, all right. Don't get mad if you see something in there that you're not familiar with.
No, I welcome you to do that.
Okay.
Yeah,
great.
that's not a problem. And so, for example, in this first one, management of county-owned lands, organize new volunteer efforts at Biscuit Run. I don't think that that's a high priority at this moment because we don't have, this invasive task force sounds like it's beginning to form. And so, we're not really at the point to. So, I'm just going to get rid of high as a high priority for that right there. And I'm going to take Nancy off that. But this is something that I personally am interested in, so I'm going to leave my name there. To facilitate the development of an invasive management plan for Biscuit Run. Oh, Kim, what do you even think about that?
Yeah, I think it's something that they definitely want to do. And I think that this group could provide input on it. It's really requires allocation of funds for consultant, really.
Yeah. So we're not going to.
So I don't think it's a job for this group to create the plan. But certainly there's opportunities to provide input.
Yeah.
So the other half of, there's removal of invasives, but another past recommendation of this committee has been about wildlife restoration there. There's some great restoration opportunities for bobwhite quail and other species. And I think that's still a great opportunity. I don't know where it fits in terms of this county schedule of things. But I would definitely like to see that continue as a goal.
Yeah, and Lonnie, I would love if you just put that in this document.
Yeah, I will.
Yeah,
I like the proposed idea that we bring this back to our subcommittees and we look at the relevant subcommittee items and we add those in there. I think that makes sense. So we'll include that as part of our agenda to at our next meeting.
fantastic. And Kim? Oh, you're muted.
Sorry. I think that that's a great idea. Also because I just wanted to remind you that we have to let Carolyn go at 7:30. So, we'll have to come back to this anyway. So maybe working on it in smaller groups and then coming back to the big group as a follow-up item on the agenda might be a way to, keep at it because it's a lot to take on all at once.
Absolutely. And Bruce, you had your hand up.
Yeah, so it sounds like it makes sense to, if it goes back to working groups, to put in maybe a new line that more carefully describes what they're going to do. Like, for example, Lonnie just mentioned reintroduction of species like the bobwhite, and that's not in an invasive. I wouldn't think that would be part of an invasive species plan normally, although one could see it, but because it seems like a smaller aspect, so it might be helpful to just stick that in as a line, because we could provide information, or whoever was interested in that could provide information in how that might happen. And then when the county was, at that point, we could even have something that was written up or references to look at. So does that make sense? Just like adding it as another row.
You said rather like a description of, I see what you say, progress, measurement of success. Maybe that could go in the comment. It's hard when you get those rows to get, there's only so much room there. Also, I
Yeah.
just want to say that I really want you to, if you add something to list, you really need to like go back to the BAP and see,
Yeah.
is there a place in the BAP that actually calls for that step to be
Right.
taken? And so
Okay.
we really want to make sure that any step that you add to this is tied to one of the BAP goals. And I know there's a tie there. It's just a matter of like going back and sort of researching where is that tie and where's that connection. Kim,
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I think that it is connected to the BAP goal above, so the action items are not always specific to the recommendations, like they could be something like, provide recommendations to county parks and rec about habitat management, which is sort of what you both are talking about. And that's sort of related to management of county-owned lands to conserve and enhance biodiversity. So I think that adding a line might be appropriate. I don't know if you agree, Christine, and then, but making sure that someone's responsible for actually doing it.
yeah. And if you put it there, to say that's indicating, put your name there. Like I'm gonna move forward on this. I'm gonna make the phone calls or see where I can push for that to happen. And just as an aside, that's one of the things I've been talking with the Albemarle County Parks and Rec about, like, for example, this hayfield over at Walnut Creek. Like, is it possible to stop haying it? And to think of it more as a place where the grasses are let to grow, a place that you can mow a strip right down the middle, a place for birders to come visit. So.
And Christine, just related to that also, if it's not something that's in the BAP, but we feel it should be, I think it would be great to start tracking things like that too, because we are kind of coming up to our next update of the BAP, as I keep saying, and review, well, what part of that exercise will be reviewing these goals and recommendations and adding new ones, maybe taking some out if they're completed or, no longer relevant. So that's another way, lens to view this through, I think.
Absolutely. And that would be the lighting ordinance, because that's not necessarily specifically in the BAP. Yeah. Lonnie, did you have, your hand is up?
Sorry, I just forgot to lower it.
Oh, okay. All right, you guys, this is not easy, because I've spent a lot of time looking at this and like how to get us to move forward. And I know that we are constrained, but it sounds like we're getting on the same page here. I'm getting a feel for that. So I'm going to add a section on the bottom that says things that are not presently in the BAP or aspirational things that need to get added in the update. And then a column, Bruce, you were saying a sort of a descriptive column. Let me get that right. Say one more time what you had suggested.
No, I didn't mean it as a descriptive column. The key action item says right now it reads input on development of an invasive species management plan for Biscuit Run.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure if a redevelopment of species that are no longer there fits in the description of an invasive management plan.
It would be an additional row, and just a clarification on that point, we do have iNaturalist observations of bobwhite quail in that region. So it's more about creation of habitat to, if there are still quail in the region, to provide habitat so they can grow and thrive. Yeah.
So it feels like it fits under the BAP goal number 4, but it needs to be a new row.
Oh, yeah.
Because it's a different description.
Absolutely. Yeah.
That's what I meant.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah. Please feel free to add new rows. Absolutely. Yeah. All right. And so are there any more questions? Do people feel like we can make progress on this? And can everybody commit to really taking a look at this document like in your subcommittee, I mean, in your working group and or outside of it. I think taking the time to look at it really carefully outside of it and then coming to your working group kind of with a plan, your own personal action plan or ideas for it, and then sharing it with the group might be useful. Michael.
I was just going to say, let's set aside a dedicated time in the agenda where we can review this. I know you've had the groups listed for reports. Why not include those reports at that time? You know, on what happened with the work plan in your group, you know, the last time you got together or over the last period of time, as part of the reports. Give that update.
Yeah,
And
that sounds.
And it can't be, we didn't do anything.
I love it.
Anything done.
I couldn't have said it better. Nobody comes back and say, I didn't do anything this last month. We all got to come back with something we've done. That's really important. And that's what I really want everybody to commit to. And again, please, I can't be putting in describing what you've done. I want you to describe what you've done in here. And I'm going to describe what I have done. So if everybody would take that on, I think that would be fantastic. And we will absolutely keep this in, and this will be our guiding document if everybody's in agreement with that. Do I get some thumbs up, thumbs down, thumbs like this?
There are no thumb opportunities, so I'll just say yes. There's no
All right.
faces or anything, just a hand.
Fantastic. And I do want to just remind everybody that I have been 2 years as the chair. So, you know, I want everybody to be thinking about who's going to step up. Emma has agreed to be the co-chair, and we should consider, I don't know if she'll make our next meeting, but voting on that. And then, I mean, we could vote on it now in the 5 minutes, but perhaps let's wait until our next meeting. And also hope all of you will reach out. It'll be really exciting to have Abigail join us as a new member, and we will still have an open, and Kenan, having you back and active. We still have one more opening, so. All right, you guys. Anything else anybody wants to add?
So you can't be chair for another term? Do you have to rotate off, or do you want to rotate off?
Well, you guys are probably ready for somebody else to lead and take the helm here, but I don't know exactly if that's in the charter, and it's like there's a limit to 2 years.
Ronnie probably knows, yeah.
We have no limit on that. I was going to offer, I mean, I would always welcome new blood, someone who wants to be chair. But absent that, it's been a while since I've been chair. So if you need me to step into that, I would be willing to do it.
Yeah, you were great. Yeah, it'd be good to have you back too, Lonnie.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we will.
Yeah.
So, well, I think that we will make sure that we continue that discussion. And yes, it would be great. And we'll get Emma on board here and carry on with our efforts.
Okay, well, thanks then. Hopefully I'll be out of my wrist brace by the next meeting.
You take good, yeah, do take good care of yourself, Peggy, and I hope you feel better. And hopefully spring and warmth will be upon us pretty soon.
Yay. Okay.
All right. All right. Thank you guys so much. Thank you for all
Thanks,
of our
Carolyn.
attendees, and Carolyn. Have a great evening, you guys.
Okay, you
Thank you,
too.
everybody.
Have a nice time.